around. The place was destroyed. The people that went out to greet us were standing on the ruins of their port. Everything was destroyed. Schools, buildings, the roads were hardly passable. There's no electricity. Where Israel found $2 billion to demolish, I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem to me there was $2 billion left. So how do you explain that? I think you have to explain it within the context of the Annapolis process that everybody's forgotten about. See, the problem is when things happen, it crowds out the last thing that happened. So people don't have a context for this. The Annapolis process is Israel's desperate attempt to get past the occupation and get on with its bigger regional agenda. And that's why it's trying. This is as good as it can do. This is the most land it can give up to the Palestinians and still get it through an Israeli government. And this is, they hope, the minimal amount of land that we can give the Palestinians and have Abu Mazen sign off on it. It's that finessing between these two things. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think the Palestinian people can support it. And I don't think us, the people that support the Palestinians, can ever support this. I don't believe an apartheid regime, a new one, can be established without our protests and in defiance of the will of the Palestinians. I don't think it can happen. But it's being tried. So that what Israel has done is not leave this to negotiations, but it's created what we call facts on the ground, that in a sense prejudice negotiations. The idea of the facts on the ground is you create such massive permanent facts that they prejudice negotiations. That in a way you determine the outcome of negotiations before the negotiations begin. And this is a map of what I call the matrix of control. Now, if anybody can show me how a viable two-state solution is going to emerge from this map, I'd really like to hear it. I mean, I don't see it. And I'm not going to get into detail, because I don't want to talk super long, but I do want to just show you some of the elements of this matrix, just to understand why I think the two-state solution might not be possible. First of all, the Palestinians' lands have been fragmented. The Palestinians live in these brown areas. These are what we call areas A and B. I mean, how'd you like to live in area A for the rest of your life? It's pretty dehumanizing. So, areas A and B represent about 42% of the occupied territories. In other words, 95% of the Palestinians live on 42% of 22% of a small country. Okay? And then that's fragmented into about 70 different islands. You can see there's about 70 different islands, all surrounded by Israeli checkpoints and earthen mounds over the entrances and exits to neighborhoods, villages, towns, and so on. So that you have what we call an internal closure. There are 650 obstacles to movement in the occupied territories. In other words, preventing Palestinians from moving freely from island to island to island, all in between. There's also an external closure, so that Palestinian workers are prevented from going into Israel by a complete closure on the West Bank and Gaza. At one point, more than 120,000 Palestinian workers would enter Israel every day to work. Today, nobody goes in. Almost nobody goes in. So that the Palestinians have been thrown back on a known economy. And then you get the settlements. So Israel's built 250 settlements over the last 41 years. All these blue areas here, all these blue dots all over are settlements. Well, once Israel decided to go the way of apartheid, to go the way of a Bantustan, it decided that it's going to get rid of the little settlements settlements deep in these Palestinian areas. Now, that's still not clear if he can do it, because I'm not sure if an Israeli government can be established that would have the mandate to do that. You know, I'm not so sure that the combined weight of the settlers and the right wing in Israel is going to allow even the Bantustan to emerge. For Netanyahu, apartheid is too much. Netanyahu doesn't want to give 15% to the Palestinians. So even within the right wing of Israel, even the apartheid solution is not that Sharon and the Labour Party want. It's not exactly clear that can pass. But the idea then of convergence is these settlements deep in the Palestinian areas will be converged into these peak areas. These peak areas are what we call the settlement blocks. There are 7 settlement blocks that Israel wants to maintain at a minimum. The Jordan Valley, right, that controls the border and the water. The Ariel block that divides the West Bank east and west around the city of Ariel, that also sits atop the largest water aquifer. So here we see the northern Canton emerging. The Modi'in block that connects Ariel to the Jerusalem area around the city of Modi'in, that's being built as the largest city in Israel, that straddles the border. 3 settlement blocks that make up Greater Jerusalem. Givat Ze'ev, Ma'ale Adumim, and the Etzion block. So these not only control the central part of Jerusalem, but again, they isolate Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank. The World Bank estimates that 40% of the Palestinian economy revolves around Jerusalem. So by isolating Jerusalem from the West Bank, you cut the economic heart out of any Palestinian state. And finally, there's a salient coming up from the south to Hebron. I think this is completely unsustainable. This is like Gaza. But it doesn't matter, really. The point is, you've got 6 settlement blocks that then carve the West Bank into the cantons. The central one, the southern one, and now you begin to see the Bantustan emerging from the facts on the ground. You also have a whole infrastructure of Israeli-only highways. 29 major highways that were built in the occupied territories, linking the settlements into Israel during the Oslo peace process. So where's the good faith? In other words, here we are for 7 years, from 1993 to 2000, in the Oslo so-called peace process, sitting face to face with the Palestinians, negotiating land, water, borders, sovereignty, Jerusalem, refugees. During those 7 years, Israel doubled its settler population. In 1993, there were 200,000 settlers. By 2000, there were 400,000 settlers. During those same years, Israel built 29 major highways linking the settlement blocks into Israel. Ironically, it was during the Oslo peace process that Israel eliminated the 2-state solution. Now, I just want to give you, because I know most of you haven't been there, just give you a look for a minute of what's happening on the ground, the facts on the ground. This is an Israeli settlement. You know, the language is misleading. When we say settlement, the impression is, you know, a couple little cabins on a hillside. This is a settlement of 30,000 people. It's called Har Homa, between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. There are settlements of 70,000 people. Whole satellite cities. So to say, yes, we're going to have a 2-state solution, and we're just going to remove the settlements. Yeah, right. You go remove this. Or, you know what, the settlements aren't that important. We can do a territorial swap. Yeah, right. You have this between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. You have Ma'ale Adumim in the center of the West Bank, together with Ariel. Where do you get a viable Palestinian